The Shah dynasty emerged around 3,700 years ago. It's kind of short-lived here. But we do see walled cities. So again, going from villages to cities, we find ritual bronze vessels. So you can get an example of that here. And they're actually molding these. So they're piece casting them. They create these molds and then pour the bronze in there. We do find evidence of palaces. And again, more differential treatment of the dead. So elites actually get wooden coffins, and they often have jade artifacts thrown in with them. Well, maybe not thrown in, placed with them. Bronze vessels, bronze daggers, axes. So a lot of different kinds of ceremonial things put into the elite graves. So the Shang dynasty seems to be very similar to the Shah dynasty, so it's possible that there's connections here. But we do see a real increase in the use of bronze, and the Shang are known for these wonderful bronze vessels here. But we do still see pottery too, although it's not very advanced, so, or it looks rather crude is one way to put it. So, but it does look like bronze, again, kind of really takes off here. So this is the kind of first culture in China that has all of the traits of a state-level society. So we can kind of consider this as, if not the first, at least the first significant state-level society. They did have cities, so Anyang, which was the last capital of the Shang dynasty, is clearly a ceremonial and administrative center. It's divided into 3 sections, so you have this northern area with the residence of the ruling elite, and these are rectangular houses on stamped earth platforms. In the middle part of the Anyang, you have ancestral temples, large number of burials here, and in the southern area, you have the ceremonial center. So there are actually 17 stamped earth foundations. We find oracle bones, a large number of human sacrifices, large-scale structures, so divided very clearly into zones, you might say. Occupational specialization, again, pottery making. We find kilns and a large amount of broken pots. Bronze making, we're seeing mass production. It's pretty clear that the area is territorially organized, so we're seeing common artifact styles in a very clearly delineated region. And we are seeing out in those hinterlands craft production areas. Class stratification, very clear here also. So by the late Shang, we're seeing high levels of stratification. So you have the king in the royal lineage, and in fact, here's burial at Anyang of the king. So here's the primary interment down here, and you can see the number of sacrificial victims. And again, this is only one small portion of the actual burial itself. So a lot of effort put into this. But the second level would have been aristocrats, including the military, then we have craftsmen, and then we have peasants. So again, we see this evidence in burials. We see sacrificial victims with the elite, commoner burials, very few have possessions put in with them. We also see a concentration of surplus, so we're going to jump back here a second here. And it looks like the king did control them, so there's controlled access to it. And I imagine he had a whole system to get all of the goods out to people, or where he wanted them to go. We see monumental public architecture, again writing. So by the end of the Shang, we have 3,000 or more phonetic symbols. It's a combination of ideographic and pictographic. We find standardized art, again in the bronze works. And we also find evidence of arithmetic. So we have a standardized money, which looks like cowrie shells were used for that. So again, looks like the Shang rulers were theocrats, so they were more religious nature to the rulers than kind of a secular thing. From inscriptions, it's been determined that rule was passed from elder brother to younger brother, or from father to son. The king regarded himself as the earthly instrument for the accomplishment of heaven's designs. Now that's a direct quote, but I'm working off of old notes, so I'm not sure where that actually came from. And the king was in charge of appointing whoever he wanted to do administrative positions. and would grant boons for service to the king. So the Shang dynasty was overthrown a little over 3,100 years ago by the Zhou. We're not going to actually talk about the Zhou, again, for time constraints, but after the fall of the Shang, we do start to see emergence of kind of small city-states. And these city-states is kind of think of it as a feudal system. So between 3122 and about 2221 BP, there are several kingdoms, and we think there are 7 of them. We see more cities. There seems to be complex administrative society within those cities, and we see cycles of peace and warfare. During this time frame, we see the introduction of iron. So we see iron armor, swords and knives appear. Confucianism appears during this time frame, and we start to see the spread of Buddhism. So we actually have a couple of different competing ideologies here. So we do see us stressing a family and not so much political ties. So it's kind of being anti-feudal, but this doesn't really last very long. We see irrigation agriculture introduced. Again, intensification of agriculture. We see larger populations. But now we want to talk about the Qin Empire. This Qin, or Qin Shi Huang Dai, is the first Chinese emperor, and he declared himself emperor around 2221 BP, and that's the beginning of the Qin dynasty, hence the name China. Now, Qin Shi Huang Dai inherited the Qin kingdom when he was only 13 years old, so he actually had some help ruling, but once he came of age, took it over completely. He's particularly known for being cruel and quite tyrannical, but he's also known for creating kind of a myriad of administration institutions. He did quite a bit of work during the time he was emperor. He established laws, he established coin currency, a standardized system of measurement, a road system, and a canal system. He is the person that is responsible for connecting a series of walls together, which I believe in the Ming Dynasty then becomes complete in what we now know as the Great Wall of China. But it wasn't always one continuous wall. It actually started as a series of individual earthen walls. And again, Qin began to connect those. So this wall was probably built by an estimated 1 million conscripts. Some are entombed in the wall. Text suggests that if somebody was found sleeping on the job, they got entombed in the wall. It's just kind of hard to know why they were entombed in the wall. One of the other things that Qin is responsible for, of course, is uniting all of these 7 kind of city-states or kingdoms after quite a long period of war. But he's also known for creating the mausoleum complex at Mount Li, modern-day Xi'an in China. So Qin's royal tomb is about 150 feet tall. Probably took around 700,000 people, about 39 years to build. We see a number of buildings and tombs. We see slave execution pits, workshops, and of course the terracotta army. So Qin was creating his own little universe here for the afterlife. And it took quite a while for people to actually go into the tomb itself, because all evidence points to the fact that Qin was a little bit on the crazy side. He was actually poisoning himself by taking mercury because he thought it would prolong his life. But people were afraid he would have set booby traps for this particular thing. That was some of the stories that were put out. He actually killed the architects and, again, the workers that built the place, so nobody else would know the secrets of his tomb. If anybody came up against Qin, they were usually executed, and there's an example of some 400 priests that come to him for a particular reason, but they're opposing him, and he simply has them buried alive. So it's understandable that people were a little bit hesitant about getting into this tomb at first. The actual tomb itself hasn't been excavated, so at least not that I know of. It's possible that that has changed since now. But